Fantastic. Thank you once again. My
Yeah.
first question is, what is the greatest lesson Second City taught you?
Well, I think I discovered a new version of the old rule. There's an old rule in improvisation called play to your intelligence, which is have your characters be as smart as you are. And a lot of times in comedy, dumb characters are funny. So
Hmm.
if you're trying to be funny, you want to play somebody who's a little dim. And that seems to go against that rule of play to your intelligence. But I think the real rule is play to your dignity, which is to say, even if your character is dumb, blinkered, dim, they believe in and express and pursue their own dignity. They never they never compromise their belief in themselves, even though they're clueless in some ways, maybe. So you get it allows you, my argument allows you to play someone who's funny because they're missing some information or they're carried away with themselves. But it explores, I think, a deeper kind of uh, quality that I think you do need to play. You know, Ricky Gervais in The British Office, his character is very clueless about a lot of things. He says a lot of dumb things. He makes a lot of dumb moves,
Hmm.
but it's because he's so needy, because he's so emotionally needy for your attention and for your approbation that he says dumb things and he stays with those things. And so he's playing the character's need, emotional need, and he is, despite the fact that he's very undignified, he's playing the character's dignity.
That's great. Thank you for telling me about that.
Here's a little lecture.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I know you talk about Dell in your book, but my next question is about him. And could
Yeah.
you just talk a little about Dell and what was it about your interview with him that inspired your career in showbiz?
Yeah. Well, so Dell was very much not the kind of person I would personally um, choose as a mentor or a hero. Dell lived in a little one bedroom apartment. It was cluttered and dirty. He smoked a lot of pot. He um, he didn't have a lot of money. He didn't have kids. He didn't have a marriage. Um, but hanging out with him for the 2 hours that I did on that fortuitous day, um, I loved the life of the mind that he showed me. That he had a lot of demons of his own, and he survived those. He truly did. Even though he'd been through so much and put himself through so much, he survived. And he even thrived because he loved ideas. He loved performance. He loved, as he said, uh, trying to deduce what makes a human being tick. And that was his pursuit. And it kept him mentally alive. And I think it energized him through his whole life. So I really grooved on that. I felt it, I could see it in him. And I wanted to have some version of that as I went forward in life. Was this excitement he had still about doing what he did.
Excellent. And could you describe your experience at Second City, and could you also walk me through the process of sketch writing to ultimately performing it on stage?
So I had a very strange experience at Second City in that I had already been hired at Saturday Night Live as a writer 3 years earlier. I had already been at SNL for 2.5 years when I got a phone call, do you want to do the main stage of Second City? I did not spend any time taking classes at Second City or being a part of the traveling group or did one audition for them years before. I did not do well. In fact, I didn't do a lot of improvisation. I like to write sketches. I liked Monty Python and I like Saturday Night Live, but I especially like Monty Python. And I spent my time writing, trying to write sketches because that's what I loved. I like improvisation. It can be fun, but I'm not great at it. And I don't think it's as good as writing. I think writing is harder and more worthy of pursuit and trying to figure out. So that's what I loved and that's what I wanted to do. And so I did my own thing. I got hired at Saturday Night Live, and 2.5 years later, I got invited to do Second City. And I had to say yes because I grew up in Chicago. And like I've said, it's like being asked to pitch for the Cubs. You're gonna say, look, I'm not good at this, but I'll do it. If you want me to do it, I'll go out there. I'm gonna do it. So I had a great time at Second City. Despite that, I had a rough time and a great time. The people that I did the main stage cast with, some of them were people I'd known for years. Holly Wortell, Jill Talley, Dave Pasquesi, were 3 people that I'd known since I had started many years earlier. And of course, they knew I'd gone off to Saturday Night Live and been a writer there. And why did I need this job? There were all these people in line to take over at the main stage. And here I am, already past it, coming back and kind of pushing them back down in a way. And so they resented my presence and they let me know it.
Mm.
Meanwhile, I'm a Chicago kid who's like, I'm gonna say yes to performing on the Second City stage. Come on, give me a
Yeah.
break. Chris Farley was part of that group. He was not resentful of me. He was happy I was there. He thought very highly of me. Timmy Meadows also was very welcoming. Jill Talley, I'd known for years. She was very welcoming. But some of the other casts didn't know why I was there, were kind of angry that I was there. I still had a good time because I love that stage. And, I loved writing for Chris Farley. I wrote the motivational speaker when I was there for Chris. I loved Jill and I loved Dave Pasquesi. He was very angry at me for taking the job, but he's a great improviser, one of the greatest, and also a very smart person. And I like him and I like his talent. So in the end, I think I gained respect from hopefully everybody. I only was there for 3 months. If I bumped anyone, which I did, people like Mark Beltzman and Ron West, they took that spot as soon as I left. I went back to SNL the next year. So starting in September, they all got to move up. And in fact, I took Chris Farley and Timmy Meadows with me. So I even made more room for people.
Right.
I should have been welcomed with open arms, as it turns out. But we all got along. I loved working in that theater, and actually just the smell of that theater, which is a dank, beer-soaked, airless, kind of a closet, is something I recall from when I was 14 and I first went there and saw a show. And I love that vibe. I love that feeling of being in that grubby performing space. So my time there was really special to me, even though it had kind of a lot of sides to it.
Great. And then my next question is about Chris Farley. You mentioned in the past that it was due to Chris Farley's brilliance that gave you the idea to try dramatic acting. In what ways do you think your experience at Second City helped shape the way you approach these dramatic roles?
Well, this is a very clever way of posing that question that you've come up with. What happened was I was doing an improvisation with Chris and Jill Talley, and Chris was being hilarious, and I'm looking at the audience. They're right here, and they're watching Chris. And I have the thought, if I was sitting in that audience, I would be watching that guy too. I would not be watching me. And I'm not resentful at all. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, this guy's hilarious. But I also had the weird thought that came out of nowhere of, and if this was a drama, I don't know why I thought that, but if this was a drama on stage, I might be the most interesting character up here because when I come on stage, I bring a somewhat complex, you might say murky or diffuse aura. You know, your favorite comedy performers, Jack Black, Chris Farley, Will Ferrell, uh, uh, you smile. You just smile when they come out, even if they're playing bad or wrong, or you just smile. They make you happy. They bring a joy and a smile onto the stage in front of you from the second they appear. And that is good for comedy. I don't bring that. When I walk on stage or in the camera, the first thing you think is, what is going on with this guy? And that actually is good for drama. It's good for drama to have you asking the question, what are this guy's motives? He's smiling, but I'm not sure he's good. He's friendly. I can't tell. And then you discover over the course of the show or play or whatever, hopefully it becomes clear. But that uncertainty is actually a great thing for drama. And it's not really a great thing for comedy. Um, I never really pursued drama. I just got invited to do Breaking Bad, and I got to test this little proposition that I had come up with while I was on stage at Second City of would I be sort of better in drama? And it turns out I was my instinct was I think right. But it was not something I pursued. I did audition for Alexander Payne films, but I spent my career writing comedy, both for myself and other people, because that's what I loved.
This next question is about Mr. Show. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how do you think your experience at Second City impacted the way you approach sketch comedy during Mr. Show?
Well, Second City is a sketch stage, and it is a scripted show. It does do improvisations after the scripted show. First, you get a 2-hour scripted show, hour and a half, and then they'll improvise. So it was scripted sketch comedy, and I learned, the difference between Second City and Saturday Night Live was I didn't get a whole lot on at Saturday Night Live. My hit ratio was very, very low. At Second City, I got a lot into the show. I was a good writer in the context of Second City. I was a very good writer. And I got to have a lot of sketches in there, including the motivational speaker, which was one of the best things I've ever written. And I got to just become a better sketch writer, which helped me immensely at Mr. Show.
Fantastic. And then this question is about kind of the Chicago comedy scene in general. So I'm wondering, what do you think it is about Chicago that produces these great comic talents?
Yeah,
Whether it's improvisers like Belushi, Murray, and you,
yeah, yeah.
or Sebastian Maniscalco or John Mulaney, like what do you think about this city that helps shape these comedians?
Um, it's the audience is smart. The audience knows and likes comedy. Much of the audience is funny in their own personal lives. They kind of have a Midwestern sarcastic streak, that a cut down streak, that they cut things down around them. It is very hurtful to children. It can be hurtful, but it's also you got an audience that's already in their own daily lives funny people. I also think because you don't have the big business of show business right there in your face, you don't have Broadway and you don't have movies and television, sort of around you. You're in Chicago. There aren't networks coming to see your show. There aren't even agents really. You do your comedy and you pursue your voice for your own purposes, for your own artistic discovery. And that helps you grow. And when you're surrounded by that bigger business, and when people, even in your small theater, let's say you're in LA, they get a job in a big TV show, they audition for a big TV show, you feel like you should be having that break and chasing that break. When you're Chicago, you're competing against the other people who also are starting out, who are doing cool things. And you're going, how can I do the cooler thing? How can I grow and get my voice more pure? And that's what you should be doing when you're starting out. You shouldn't be chasing the big jobs.
In your book, you mentioned that you interviewed Joyce Sloan. Could you talk to me a little about what you learned from her and why that meeting was so impactful for you?
Well, that meeting was, sadly, it was kind of, I love Joyce. Joyce was the den mother of Second City. She was the woman who had real business jobs and efforts that she had to maintain the theater, but she also maintained people's personalities, their equanimity, their camaraderie. She was overseeing a degree of the personalities at a theater, and she did that wonderfully, and cared for people. When she told me the stories and I interviewed her, she was telling me a lot of apocryphal stories about um, very high-profile Second City performers, and they were all stories that oversimplified their journey to stardom, and that actually was um, uh, that didn't encourage me or inspire me. It made me feel bad, because to some extent, in every story she told, the actor was kind of had a magical quality. And I, you know, was certain that I did not have a magical quality. And that turned out to be true. What I have is I show up every day and work.
I
And,
believe you have magical quality.
well, thank you.
Um,
Only insofar as we all do. But the point is, look, Joyce helped me a lot, because what Joyce did more than anything was, when Tom Giannis, the director of the Main Stage Show, wanted to hire me, and here I was already a writer at Saturday Night Live, he asked Joyce, would it be okay for me to ask my friend to come be on the main stage? And she said, yeah, this is not, Second City is not an assembly line, she said. It is, yes, you can get in line. Yes, you can do the classes. Yes, you can be in the tour company. But who gets those slots in the main stage show is not something you get simply by putting in the hours. Putting in the hours is helpful. You'll get better. But if there's a person outside of the club, Second City, who's good and maybe can bring some spark to our show, we can hire them. They can come in. And that was true of Chris Farley as well. Chris Farley did not do the long road to Second City main stage. He was in it an improv Olympic team, and Del Close directed a show and said, I want to bring this kid on. And he did not do the ETC theater. He did not work his way up. He jumped right into the main stage show.